Is snobbery against e-bikes justified? Or do some people just enjoy ruining all the fun? In this video, we're going to share our first impressions of e-bikes.
We took advantage of the last few days of Bixi season in Montreal to try out e-bikes for the first time. Bixi is Montreal's exceptionally popular bike share system, which unfortunately gets packed up for the winter in mid-November. They started offering e-bikes a few years ago, but we didn't actually get around to trying them. For those of us who don't own e-bikes, bike share systems are a great way to get access to one, when they're available. We tried to check out Bike Share Toronto's electric bikes earlier this summer too, but we couldn't find one that worked. While Toronto is working on expanding their fleet, Montreal stepped up to the plate as our e-bike testing ground. Our first reaction to riding an e-bike was that it just feels pretty darn similar to riding a regular bike. You do feel the electric motor kick in after a second, and you definitely notice when you switch back to a regular bike and lose the boost. But overall, it really just feels like an upgrade to a regular bike rather than a completely different category. That only applies to these pedal assist e-bikes that require you to pedal to activate the motor though, which is usually what people mean when they talk about e-bikes. There's a different category of e-bikes that let you engage the motor separately with a throttle, which puts them closer to the category of electric moped. That's even more true for the models with pedals that are about as functional as T-Rex's arms and clearly only there to legally count as a bike.
Beautiful, emo, e-bike. Looks and feels just like a motorbike. 500 pounds. Got the pedals, of course, just to comply with regulations.
When zooming around, it's easy to see why people find e-bikes useful. Maybe you don't want to get as sweaty on hot summer days, or your trip is just a little too long to be covered in a reasonable time on a regular bike, or your trip includes more hills than you feel like climbing. Montreal's hills haven't stopped it from becoming the best cycling city in Canada, but it is easy to see why people might want a little boost up Barrie Street or the Jacques Cartier Bridge. Bixies also have the problem of accumulating at downhill stations, which they try to address by enlisting their fleet of vans, as well as dedicated YouTubers to keep the system in balance. Electric Bixies probably help this by encouraging people to take more uphill trips. While this doesn't apply to Bixie so much, people pulling or pushing cargo on their bikes obviously benefit a lot from electric assist too. As for the downsides, e-bikes are obviously more expensive. Electric Bixies cost twice as much per minute as regular Bixies, and buying an e-bike yourself can mean spending a few $1,000s. It's still nothing compared to a car, especially an electric one, but one of the joys of regular bikes is that you can often get a used but very functional bike for a few $100s at most. That's a lot of mobility for not a lot of money. Fortunately, some jurisdictions are offering rebates for people who buy e-bikes, although not the same kind of money that gets thrown at electric cars. Being more expensive than regular bikes, e-bikes are also a bigger worry for theft, although bike share does let you opt out of that problem. E-bikes also have a limited range, kind of. Once the battery runs out, you can keep going on your own power, but you're left with a heavy bike that's harder to pedal. For most urban cycling, this won't be a problem, but you might need to be careful if you like to do day trips. Electric Bixies, for example, have a range of 60 to 70 kilometers, although because of the per minute cost, you probably don't want to keep one that long anyway. And the final reason, maybe the biggest reason, why someone might decide to stick with a regular non-electric bike is if they just don't have any particular need for electric assist. E-bikes help with challenging distance, hills, or cargo, but if none of these are currently a problem for you, why not keep the extra exercise in your day, save some money, and stick with the simpler non-electric option?
Despite some disadvantages, e-bikes are really popular. Electric Bixies are chosen 60% more often than regular Bixies, and they're used for longer trips too. The average trip on a regular Bixie is just under 3 kilometers, compared to almost 5 kilometers on an electric Bixie. That comes from riding about 30% faster and for about 30% more time, even though they cost more per minute. This popularity also means that they're more profitable, despite the higher maintenance cost, at least according to a Bike Share Toronto report, that each e-bike for them is a profit of $2.50 per day, while each regular bike is a loss of 50 cents. We shouldn't stress too much about losses. Public services don't exist to make money, and bike share in Montreal and Toronto is an amazing value for the small subsidy it requires. But if the popularity of e-bikes brings more money to the system, that can only be good for service and coverage. Electric bikes aren't just popular compared to regular bikes. They're also popular compared to electric cars. And what might be a surprising twist, e-bikes actually outsell electric cars, and not just in Europe, even in the good old United States of America. There's a good case to be made that e-bikes are actually the electric vehicle of the future, at least for urban areas. E-bikes are a fraction of the price, making them much more accessible to the average consumer. They fit better into more livable models of low-traffic neighborhoods, and they're a much more efficient use of the rare and often dangerous chemicals that go into making batteries. The lowest capacity battery that we could find for a Tesla Model 3 is equivalent to 129 e-bike batteries based on this local Quebec brand.
Now we have to address the elephant in the room, e-bike snobbery. There's a small but loud set of people in the urbanist and cycling communities who really don't like e-bikes. Some of their points are fair. E-bikes that go fast and don't require pedaling aren't really bicycles anymore. They're mopeds or even light motorbikes, and they don't belong in bike lanes or on multi-use pathways. Although that's not to say that they're bad overall. They're still greener and less disruptive than cars. A lot of the hatred of e-bikes, though, includes the normal pedal assist kind like the Bixies we rode. And when people get really disparaging over these simple machines, it's hard not to see it as coming from a simple idea. E-bikes are cheating and you're lazy. This makes no sense. E-bikes are only cheating if you're in a bike race. No one would ever say that you're cheating if you take the bus to work. But because e-bikes look and work like regular bikes, people somehow feel that they're in a competition. Sure, the exact same trip will be less exercise on an e-bike than a regular bike. So what? You'd get even more exercise if you just ran everywhere. But no one insists that running is the one correct way to get around, or that wheels are just for lazy people who coast through life. Exercise absolutely is one of the best parts of active transportation, but we have to take it in doses that are practical in our lives. People don't want to get to work tired, sweaty, and late. And if using an e-bike is what makes that trip practical or enjoyable for you, the answer is clear. Fortunately, when biking around Montreal, it's pretty clear that no one actually cares that some people on Twitter think that e-bikes are cheating. But it is unfortunately an idea that's out there.
Our first experience using e-bikes and our look into some of the numbers left us pretty excited about their potential to get more people into active transportation. So, are we going to go out and buy e-bikes ourselves? Probably not. We already own enough bikes and they meet our current needs pretty well. But we'll keep in mind the electric option when making recommendations to anyone getting into urban cycling who's worried about distance or hills. And who knows, if we ever get something like a cargo bike in the future, maybe we'll go electric for that.
Thanks for watching through to the end of the video. Don't forget to bike and subscribe. A special thanks to our community of supporters on Patreon.